I think Epstein is probably still alive. I think that whole thing was weird. There's discrepancies in the autopsy. Dr. Michael Baden, he doesn't believe it was a suicide. He reviewed the autopsy. I don't know if he's actually with the body or if he reviewed the autopsy, but Baden's just interesting because he did JFK's brain autopsy and all that stuff. He did Shannon Gilbert, who was a victim of the Long Island serial killer. So he talks a lot about the hyoid bone, and Epstein's broken 3 places, which isn't really consistent with suicide. It's more consistent with a strangulation and a homicide. There's so many discrepancies with the story. I don't buy the cameras going out. We were told for years there were no cameras. Now we have this 11-hour footage that's edited.
By the way,
the security guards went to sleep.
I was just going to say, too, another way in which the Trump administration has just utterly botched this is to put out, finally, after an extensive delay, to put out this footage and tell us, look here, guys, we've got it. And then, it turns out there's a minute missing. Oh, well, we can explain that. It's just this is what normally happens every time that it reboots. And then it turns out Wired Magazine looks at the metadata, which... Why is it not? It's just a no-brainer now that people are going to look at metadata. Like it's from the Baldoni thing to this. That should have been expected. Well, you look at the metadata, and it turns out, no, there's like 3 minutes missing from that video. Yep. So what they did is they were thinking that was going to help them, I suppose, and relieve people's suspicions by putting that video out there. And instead, it just tremendously reinforces the narrative that we're being lied to.
I refuse to believe that this is incompetence. Like it seems
all of this seems intentional. It's by design. And I just want to say one other thing.
And if it is incompetence, you need to replace those people.
Hold on. Disagree. I think that there is ample possibility for this to be incompetent.
Then you need to remove those people, like whether it's Bondi.
How many things have to happen and go wrong to allow this to happen? For it to be incompetence.
When it comes to incompetence, I don't think that there is an upper limit.
Well, I agree with you.
I would agree with you on that.
People can be infinitely stupid.
Let's look at Butler really quick. And I just want to make another point after this about Epstein and the death. Butler, Pennsylvania is a good example of what I think was mass incompetence, but evil actors using that as a shield to carry out whatever they were doing.
They're investigating the people in Butler or the Secret Service in Butler now because of actual...
We haven't heard much.
Possible nefarious.
No, it's like what, a dozen suspended agents?
Yeah, there's a lot now. That whole thing's weird. That's a whole thing. But anyway, incompetence does happen. I think sinister actors use it as cover for their plots. I mean, the Thomas Matthew Crooks thing is so weird that they cremated his body so quickly, power washed the roof so quickly.
By the way, that and talking about why people are skeptical of Trump and of this situation right now, that is hovering in the background as well. The fact that most people feel, as we do, that was never resolved, that no attempt was even made to account for that guy's motives, his history, all of that, and so we've got that in the background, and there's just this sense, I think that we understand this sense that there is something pervasively wrong in our government, the deep state right now.
And this is why Agenda 47 was so important, and for Trump to campaign on literally obliterating the deep state. Whatever you think that is, I know it's an amorphous term, and it's hard to sell to like the normies who don't want to buy into it. But this
well, it
evil
depends
operates.
on what you're trying to sell, because like I said, if you articulate to people the deep state the way that I kind of conceptualize it.
Forever bureaucrats.
Yeah, most people don't really find objection with that. Because they're like, well, yeah, I mean, if I had a job, I'd want to keep my job, and I'd want my kids to go to school, and I want to keep making my mortgage payments. So that makes perfect sense that there's people that work in the administration or work in the government that want to keep their jobs. But if you're like, hey, they're all blood-sucking vampires, and they're the ones that are in control, then people are like,
trust me,
wait a minute.
It's a tough sell. I try it every night on my show. But it's true. I mean, there is such a long history in this country of vampires, like people who are harming kids and videotaping themselves do it. Go look up Earl Bradley. Oddly enough, Joe Biden never really talked about in terms he should have. Beau Biden put an end to a pediatrician videotaping himself harming children in his basement.
Just because and I'm not.
That's just one of many.
I'm not saying that horrible things don't happen. Everyone knows that Ed Gein was a person. Everybody knows who the Night Stalker was. Everybody knows about Jeffrey Dahmer, which some of the most macabre serial killers and stuff. So there's no question that it does happen. And it makes perfect sense that if there are people that are powerful, that have influence, and they happen to be those types of serial killers or have that kind of malicious and sadistic inclination, then they're going to use their power to cover it up.
Yeah, and I
don't think that it's
I think it's pervasive.
I don't think that there's hundreds.
How
of them.
pervasive?
I think it's so pervasive because like an example I typically make is like, look, you can go look up stories of politicians with child porn and it's insane, or people who've been abused, or the way they wield their power.
When you say politicians, what do you mean by politicians?
Representatives, congressmen,
Congresspeople. And the reason I ask is because yes, I agree. You can go up and you can go and look and see and find many.
Yeah, Republican and Democrat.
There's not a side. There's many of them, but you do have to I do think it's worth remembering that there's 435 members of Congress at any one time. Yeah. And congressional representatives change very, very frequently. So there's literally probably a couple thousand.
Okay, well, Joe Biden.
Congressional representatives.
We had Joe Biden, who I think harmed children.
Again, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but I think that when you're talking about that number of people and that number of people that have like dark triad traits, because generally to become a politician, you're a little on the, I think it's psychopaths tend to be politicians.
Ted Bundy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That kind of stuff. I think that they're probably overrepresented, but at the same time, I don't think that, if there's 435 members of Congress, I don't think 300 of them are.
I don't know if all of them are, but I know a lot of I guarantee a lot of the staffers are, and a lot of those unelected bureaucrats probably partake in this as well. And the weird parties they do, you look at George Santos saying recently about those cages they had beneath the offices where all these weird sexual things were going on. Senate staffers sodomizing each other in congressional hearing rooms.
I'm more apt to believe that there is insane debauchery going on in Congress and with staffers in DC than I am to believe that there are multiple people committing murder and drinking the blood of
and
their
I
victims.
I think that's true to an extent. I kind of think too that we're almost getting in the weeds with this of like, how depraved is Congress, how depraved is our government. I mean, the point is that people, even if they're not educated on all this stuff or they don't share these specific beliefs, people have a general sense that there is something very wrong with those in control of our government and our society, right? So all you have to do is have something that taps into that and then has some basis in fact, which, as we know, there's a lot of basis in fact for thinking that Epstein was hooked into upper echelons.
To that point, do you think that the argument that, well, people generally don't like Congress, but they generally like their congressional representative. Do you think that feeds into it? People are like suspicious of Congress and they think something's going on. But then if you drill down, do you think your representative is doing? No, not mine. That's my sense. My sense is people would be like, well, no, I think my congressional representative is good. And the something nefarious is going on, something bad is going on, probably ends at the familiarity of their own.
I know one of our congressmen, I think, is a failure right now.
Yeah, I don't. I know a lot of people who just like my congressman.
Totally neglecting FBI whistleblowers who've had their lives completely ruined for calling out FBI's unethical practices, who have not been rehired, who are completely destroyed by lawfare, one of many within the FBI, and congressmen who represent these whistleblowers have done nothing, and does not even say anything. That's a problem to me.
Well, and that gets into something else too that I think is going to increasingly generate, if this is not better handled, this is increasingly generate anger, is that people have also the feeling that we are held to different standards than those in charge of our government.
Yes, 100%.
And so there's a sense, no matter what it is, that they're getting away with stuff. And so when you have something like this that comes along where people trusted the Bush administration, people trusted the Trump administration, they trusted Bongino, they trusted Patel, and then all of a sudden, and Pam Bondi has been talking out of her ass for months. Oh, I've got truckloads of it. It's on my desk. I'm looking at it. It's getting closer. I can see it. The file is getting closer. I'm going to have it. And it's like a horror movie. It's creeping up any day now, but and nothing. And for most people, that is it's a bridge too far. It's too much to ask people to tolerate these dramatic reversals, the sense of gaslighting, the condescension, and again, Trump attacking his own base at this point.
So there's all that for sure. And then I'm trying to think about how, we can tell people who aren't plugged in as schizophrenically as I might be to all this stuff. But like one example could be, so we know what Epstein has done. He went to jail for it, right? And when he went to jail the first time in Florida, look at that sweetheart deal he got.
Right.
He was able to leave whenever he wanted, still had his passport,
Crazy.
Left the country, came back, only spent 13 months in there. That's insane. So you're talking about like rules for thee, not for
right.
It's such a great example of how this guy harmed underage children and was in prison for it. and then was allowed to just do his business.
That makes me believe that Epstein is not the pinnacle of this, that he is small piece of the puzzle.
He's a cutout.
Because when they went after the mob, they would do the most brutal mobsters that have dozens of bodies, right? They would let them go if they could get the mob boss, if they can get testimony.
Right. How pervasive do you think it is then?
I don't know, because this seems like a Western problem, right? Like that, like it seems like a uniquely Western, like Five Eyes country problem. The other cultures,
wait, hold on.
like Epstein.
I don't know about that.
Epstein.
Wait, which part?
Epstein.
Which part is a pervasive problem?
I think that what you're what you're articulating is an issue of familiarity, not an issue of it being isolated to the West. I imagine, considering the fact that most people would consider Eastern European countries as uniquely corrupt, or countries that are not Western,
are we talking about
more corrupt than the United States, I think that it's probably not just more pervasive in Eastern Europe and in other parts of the world, but it's actually looked at as normal.
Are you talking about
That's what I'm
corruption?
saying. And that's so. If it's normalized in places of the world like Eastern Europe or the Middle East, like this type of debauchery and this behavior,
Are you talking about, that's what
how
I
would
wanna
you
ask.
have leverage over people?
Are you talking about corruption or the sexual blackmail stuff and harming children, or all of that together?
Kind of all of it together.
Okay, because I mean that is ancient. It's ancient. It's going on forever, ever, and America's no different. As go look at all the child sacrifice in the Bible.
Well, not only that, but like in other parts of the world, not only is it considered normal and not shocking. If you're under a monarchy, most monarchies can just say, "Well, we're doing this," and it doesn't matter what you think.
Right.
And if you raise your head up and say that this is a problem, we'll just have it cut off.
So I just want to say, like, thinking again about people who aren't plugged in and wondering why this is so important. Wondering, I personally don't think it's just online voices screaming about Epstein. The only people who seem to care about it, and then thinking about his sweetheart deal in prison. And then people saying, well, he just killed himself and just writing it off. I don't think Epstein was a suicidal person. I think knowing how he was treated in prison in Florida, that dude had a sweetheart deal after a ton of people came forward and with corroborating evidence saying he harmed children. I think he knew so many people in power that he had no fear of prison. I think that whole thing was designed for him to get out of that one jail cell. And maybe they used Tartaglione as a sort of patsy of sorts, or maybe he's in on it. I don't know. To get him alone, to get him his freedom, so they can keep doing these things. Because I don't think our government gives up on it.
What makes Epstein so special that some regular old CIA agent couldn't do?
He was a smooth operator. He was apparently very intelligent.
Right, but after the whistle was blown, after people realized what he was up to, why would they even?
I think that's why you have to have a cutout, is because he's not technically CIA. He's not technically Mossad, right? When the former prime minister just came out recently saying I can tell you verified he was not Mossad. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. Like, I'm sure he worked with you though. Like Robert Maxwell worked with you. He wasn't technically Mossad, but and a lot of people who are not technically CIA, but you're still an asset.
So assassin,
and he was smooth, and he just had these connections. I mean, I think he was groomed into these positions and used, and maybe because they knew what his proclivities were, and they used that to say, hey, he felt above the law. Clearly, he was above the law.
Right.
Look how he was in the Florida jail.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.